In 48 BC, a fire broke out in the city of Alexandria. For over 2,000 years, people have repeated the same story. That this fire started during Julius Caesar's campaign in Egypt, destroyed the greatest library in human history. But what if that story is wrong? What if the Library of Alexandria was never destroyed in a single moment? What if it was erased slowly over centuries? To understand this, we need to go back to the beginning. In 332 BC, Alexander the Great founded the city of Alexandria in Egypt. His vision was not just military or political, it was cultural. He wanted a city that would become the center of knowledge for the entire world. After his death in 323 BC, his general, Ptolemy I Soter, took control of Egypt. And unlike most rulers, Ptolemy had a different kind of ambition. He didn't just want power, he wanted knowledge. Around 295 BC, he began building what would become the most ambitious intellectual project in history, the Library of Alexandria. But this was not a passive collection of books. It was an aggressive operation. Ancient sources describe a system that bordered on obsession. Every ship that entered the port of Alexandria was searched by officials. Any scrolls found on board were confiscated. The originals were kept in the library, and copies were returned to their owners. Imagine that for a moment. This wasn't just preservation, this was control. The Ptolemaic rulers even banned the export of papyrus, the primary material for writing, to limit the ability of rival cities to compete. Their goal was simple: to gather all knowledge under one roof, and, for a time, they succeeded. At its peak, the library is believed to have contained hundreds of thousands of scrolls. Inside its walls worked some of the greatest minds of the ancient world. One of them was Eratosthenes. Around 240 BC, he made a calculation that still astonishes scientists today. Using only shadows and basic geometry, he measured the circumference of the Earth. His result was remarkably close to modern calculations, off by less than a few percent. No satellites, no advanced instruments, just observation and logic. Another figure was Hero of Alexandria, who lived in the 1st century AD. He designed a device known as the Aeolipile, essentially the first recorded steam engine. It used heated water to produce rotational motion. It was primitive, but it worked, and some historians believe that if this line of innovation had continued, the Industrial Revolution could have begun nearly 2,000 years earlier. But it didn't, because something began to change. The decline of the Library of Alexandria was not caused by a single event. It was a process, a slow erosion. Yes, the fire during Julius Caesar's campaign in 48 BC likely damaged parts of the city, including warehouses that stored scrolls. But there is no strong evidence that it destroyed the entire library. In fact, the institution continued to exist long after that. The real destruction came later, in stages. As the Roman Empire took control of Egypt, priorities shifted. Funding declined, scholarly activity weakened. Then came the rise of Christianity. In 391 AD, under the rule of Emperor Theodosius I, pagan institutions were targeted. The Serapeum, a temple that functioned as a secondary library, was destroyed. This is often seen as one of the final blows to the Alexandrian knowledge system, but even then, it wasn't the end. What truly marked the symbolic death of intellectual life in Alexandria was the murder of Hypatia in 415 AD. Hypatia was a philosopher, mathematician, and one of the last known scholars connected to the Alexandrian tradition. She was respected, influential, and highly educated, but she was also seen as a threat. In a time of rising religious and political tension, knowledge itself had become dangerous. Hypatia was brutally killed by a mob, not because of a crime, but because of what she represented. After her death, the intellectual culture of Alexandria never recovered, and so the library did not burn in a single night. It faded, neglected, underfunded, politically inconvenient. Over generations, its collections were lost, scattered, or destroyed, and eventually, it disappeared. But here's the part most people never think about. The Library of Alexandria didn't fail because of one disaster. It failed because society stopped protecting knowledge. Now consider this. Today, we have more information than at any point in human history. We carry entire libraries in our pockets. But at the same time, information is fragmented, controlled by algorithms, buried under noise, and constantly at risk of being lost, not in fire, but in irrelevance. So the real question is not how the Library of Alexandria was destroyed. The real question is this: are we preserving knowledge, or are we slowly losing it again? Because history doesn't always repeat itself. Sometimes it continues in silence.